Tonight, you might take a pill for a headache. You trust it. You feel it working within minutes. But what if the pill did nothing at all and your brain healed you anyway? That's not a hypothetical. That's medicine. Every single day. Doctors have a name for it. The placebo effect. For most of history, it was treated as a footnote. An embarrassment even. Something to control for, not something to study. But the deeper scientists dug, the stranger the story became. Because your body, it turns out, doesn't just respond to chemistry, it responds to belief. Start with the word itself. Placebo comes from Latin. It means, I shall please. In the 13th century, it had nothing to do with medicine. It named a funeral prayer, sung at the Vespers for the dead. Professional mourners were hired to sing it, standing in for grieving families who couldn't or wouldn't show up themselves. Over time, a placebo singer became an insult, a flatterer, someone performing an emotion they didn't feel for a price. By the late 1700s, doctors had borrowed the word for something eerily similar. A medicine given, one dictionary said, more to please than to benefit the patient. Even then, it carried a hint of deception. You were pleasing the patient with something you didn't quite believe in either. That changed in 1955. Henry Beecher, an anesthesiologist at Harvard, published a paper called The Powerful Placebo. He reviewed 15 clinical trials involving over 1,000 patients and found that roughly 35% of them felt real relief from a treatment that had no active ingredient whatsoever. His number became gospel, 1 in 3, repeated in textbooks for decades. Here's the twist, though. Decades later, other researchers went back and re-examined the same 15 studies Beecher cited. They found something uncomfortable. Much of what looked like a placebo effect could just as easily be explained by other things, patients naturally getting better on their own, symptoms that come and go regardless of treatment. A statistical trick called regression to the mean, where extreme measurements tend to drift back toward normal over time. So, which is it? Is the placebo effect a real biological force or a mirage built from bad math and wishful thinking? The answer, as it turns out, is both, and neither. Because the deeper story isn't in Beecher's numbers, it's in what happened after him. Consider a man named Fabrizio Benedetti, a neuroscientist in Turin, Italy. He wanted to know if placebo relief was only in someone's head, in the sense of being imaginary, or in someone's head, in the sense of being real brain chemistry. So he gave a chemical blocker called naloxone, a drug that shuts down your body's natural opioid system, to patients who were responding well to a placebo painkiller. The relief vanished instantly, which means the placebo hadn't just changed how patients felt about their pain. It had triggered their own internal pharmacy, real endorphins, flooding real receptors, blocked by a real antagonist drug. Your brain wasn't imagining the medicine, it was becoming the medicine. Benedetti pushed further, into Parkinson's disease, where patients lose the ability to produce enough dopamine to control their own movement. He gave Parkinson's patients a placebo and told them it would help. Brain scans showed dopamine release surging by roughly 200%. Then his team went even deeper, recording individual neurons inside patients undergoing surgery. The neurons responsible for rigid, difficult movement slowed their firing by around 40%, right as patients reported feeling looser, freer, more in control. No new drug entered their bloodstream, only an expectation did, and expectation somehow rewired the signal. Here's where it gets stranger still. For decades, doctors assumed the placebo effect required deception. You had to believe the sugar pill was real medicine, or the trick wouldn't work. Ted Kaptchuk, a researcher at Harvard Medical School, decided to test that assumption directly. In 2010, he ran a trial with patients suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, a painful, chronic digestive condition. One group got nothing. The other group got pills. And here's the part that should stop you. Those patients were told in plain language that the pills were placebos, sugar pills, no active ingredient. Kaptchuk's team even explained that placebos had been shown in other studies to trigger real healing through the body's own processes. And still, the patients who knowingly took a fake pill reported roughly twice the symptom relief of the group who took nothing. Knowing it was fake didn't break the spell. The ritual of treatment, the ceremony of care, seemed to matter almost as much as belief itself. If that unsettles you, wait until you hear about price. Researchers, including the behavioral economist Dan Ariely, ran an experiment where subjects received mild electric shocks, then were given a new painkiller. It was, again, a placebo. Half the participants were told the pill cost $2.50. The other half were told it had been discounted down to 10 cents. Same pill, same inert ingredients. But the people who believed they'd taken the expensive version reported significantly less pain afterward. Your nervous system, it seems, has a price tag built into it. Even pill color plays a role. In earlier research, black and red capsules were rated as the strongest, while white ones were dismissed as weak, regardless of what was actually inside them. Now for the most dramatic example of all, because this one didn't involve a pill, it involved a scalpel. In 2002, a team led by Bruce Moseley published a study in the New England Journal of Medicine on arthroscopic knee surgery, a common procedure for osteoarthritis. Patients were randomly split into 3 groups. 2 received real surgical procedures. The third received something else entirely. Real anesthesia, real incisions on the skin, but no actual repair inside the joint. A performance of surgery, nothing more. 2 years later, researchers compared outcomes across all 3 groups. The patients who received the fake surgery reported just as much pain relief and just as much improved mobility as the patients who got the real procedure, not slightly less, statistically indistinguishable. Thousands of dollars, weeks of recovery, real cuts into real skin, all producing a result your body could apparently generate on its own, given the right conditions and the right story. So, what is actually happening? It isn't that nothing is happening, it's that your brain, faced with the signals of care, of ritual, of expectation, releases its own pharmacy in response. Dopamine, endorphins, chemicals with names most people never learn, doing work most people assume only comes from a bottle. And here's a wrinkle worth sitting with. Researchers at McGill University found that placebo responses in American drug trials have been climbing for decades, getting stronger every year, while the exact same trials run in Europe and Asia show no such rise. Same biology, same species, different result. Which suggests the placebo effect isn't just about brain chemistry in isolation. It's shaped by culture, by advertising, by how a society talks about healing and hope. Not every study agrees on how large or stable this rise really is, and some antidepressant research even shows placebo response holding steady rather than climbing. But the core pattern, that context and expectation move real biology, keeps reappearing everywhere researchers look for it. So think again about tonight, about the headache, the pill, the trust you didn't even notice yourself extending. You assumed the chemistry was doing the work. Maybe it was. Or maybe in that quiet moment before the pain faded, some older, stranger machinery kicked in first, the one your ancestors leaned on before pharmacies existed, the one that doesn't need permission from a lab to be real. You didn't take a placebo tonight. You became one.